Yeah.
We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It's Saturday, and on Saturdays, frequently we have a guest, and it's Ed. And Ed is a fan favorite. Ed and I worked together for many years on the air, so working together here in this podcast is kind of second nature. Ed's a smart guy. He's the elder statesman of the Rational Boomer podcast,
That
which
means
is
I'm
saying
old.
something. Yeah, right. Which is saying something because I'm old.
Yeah.
Yet Ed is older.
Yeah.
I would
Ancient.
uh, ancient, yeah. His his birth certificate was written in Sanskrit or
That's right.
Aramaic. I'm not which one.
Well, both, I mean, I got one in each, just so
Uh,
because I traveled a bit. Your cave paintings, that was me. That was
yeah,
me. I did them
and,
all. I moved
and he
around a
actually
lot.
dated Betty Boop,
I
which
did. Hmm.
was that was your weird stage.
Yeah. Yeah, but what can I tell you? She was,
It's hot.
yeah, it really was. Still is. She's on Broadway
It,
now, for goodness
it
sakes.
that's true.
Uh,
Um, it's always interesting to, we were talking before we started this, and we were talking about some of the ridiculous shit that's going on with this administration, and we'll get to all those, regarding Bruce Springsteen and Taylor Swift and all this stuff. But I wanted to bring this one up because I didn't know if you had heard about this one or not. But apparently, Kristi Noem, the Department of Homeland Security's chief, she's
mhm.
mulling an idea. She got an idea from the
Oh,
people
wow.
who she got an idea from the people who created the Duck Dynasty reality program.
Yeah.
They
Hmm.
pitched her with an idea where immigrants would be able to be on this show and compete in whichever way they decide to compete. And if they won, it would fast track their citizenship in this country. Great idea, huh?
Uh-huh. Oh my gosh. What does that remind me of? Hunger
Hunger
Games?
Game? Hunger
Yeah.
Games? Yeah. Let's have a
Hmm.
real Hunger Games. Fuck
Yeah, it's
you.
pretty much it. Maze Runner, Hunger Games, all of that kind of stuff. This dispo let's hunt the poor. I fully expect them just to start issuing licenses to shoot immigrants, to shoot poor people. I mean, really, it's coming to that. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, A Handmaid's Tale, Hunger Games, all of that, they were fictitious, but they were forward looking. And it's coming. I mean, what was the difference between what Hitler and his cohorts did with Jews, gay people, Romani, so many those with mental challenges? I mean, it was eradicating people, and this will come to that unless these people are stopped. And this is the only time we have to do it right now, not tomorrow, not next week, right now.
Well, that's the one thing we'd always heard with the Democrats and people in general, and what we've seen through Donald Trump's first term and through the Biden term. Well, it's we're not there yet. We're not in a constitutional crisis yet.
Yeah, we are.
We don't have a problem yet. Well, those times of suggesting it's in the offing, it's in the future, that's not the case. Today is the time we get out, we get fighting, and we fucking change some shit. But Democrats tend to say, well, we don't want to push it too hard. And the Republicans, too. We've talked about this. I had somebody complain to me that there was a Democrat who issued some articles of impeachment. And
Yeah,
they said to me, how come nobody's talking about it? I said, because it's bullshit.
yeah.
It's not going anywhere. It's just performative for this guy to say, I introduced articles of impeachment to hopefully gain some popularity or credit for doing it, but it's not going anywhere. Mike Johnson isn't going to put it up. It's not going to get voted in. So the point is, it's ridiculous. But people seem to think that if you introduce articles of impeachment, it's Adam automatically goes through that process. It doesn't. It's going to have to be the Republicans that introduce that at least up until 2026.
Right. Now, what they might do is Article 25. I mean, I don't know if you caught any of his speech over in Saudi Arabia. He's
I
talking
did.
about a drone. And he says this drone circles you in fire somewhere, and then he gets in, it cuts down a tree, and it's like he gets up on
Yeah.
this thing about how his one of his cabinet members was a lumberjack, only it wasn't really him. It was just somebody with a name like that, and how this guy goes up and down trees so fast. This is in the middle of a foreign policy speech in a
Yeah.
foreign country, and he's babbling like a fucking idiot. And that's nothing new, of course. But I mean, it's an embarrassment on the world stage that we're going to have to work a long time to recover from. I mean, George Bush was an embarrassment, but nothing like this.
No,
George
and
W.
who
Bush, yeah, I
George
should
W.
say.
Bush. What whoever we get to be the next president, they better be exceptional
Hmm.
because it's going to take somebody like that to try to bring us back to where we once were. But it's going to take some time. And the thing about it is, I hear a lot of Trump-fucks say, "Well, the world loves us; they respect us. Look at what's going on with Donald Trump in the Middle East." Donald Trump is over there on a cash grab. He
Yeah,
hasn't talked about one bit of policy at fucking
no,
all. He's just cutting deals that these Middle Eastern countries couldn't cut when we had a decent president in.
right,
It's like England. England wants to cut a deal with us, and Biden didn't really want to cut it for whatever reason. Trump just gave it to him. That's fine, but that's
yeah.
only about 3% of our trade. The thing with China, he says, I've got a deal, but there's no deal. It's just a pause. And what's going on in Saudi Arabia, there are no fucking deals there. The
No,
only deals are Donald Trump is profiting.
that's right, exactly right. And he's cozying up to one of the most loathsome people in the entire world, and that's the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. I mean, this guy's a monster. He is a frigging monster. And Trump loves him, just like he never met a dictator he didn't like. He never met a monster he didn't like because he identifies with them. He aspires to be like them, to have that kind of power of life and death. That's what
Yeah.
Trump wants. And of course, and then he's over there, he's promising we're going to lift sanctions on Syria. And Marco Rubio is immediately walking that back. Well, maybe someday in the future we might consider doing that if it's on a Tuesday and the sun is out. But it's not happening. It didn't happen. There was no deal. And it would be stupid. It's like because Qatar or Qatar, whatever you want to call them, just because they give him this $400 million plane, now he's singing their praises. And even he, not that long ago, was talking about them being a state sponsor of terrorism and funding Hamas, which they do. Nobody argues with that. But now he loves them because they gave him a plane, which he can't fly. And if they let him have this, I'm really going to be pissed because it is 100% um, a violation of the emoluments clause. I can't say emoluments
Monuments.
clause. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Republicans do, well, what about Statue of Liberty? Well, if I want to see the Statue of Liberty, all I have to do is go to New York and get on a boat, and I can go and spend the day. I can go up to the top. I can look out. I can do all of that. It is a publicly owned monument. Trump gets the plane, he flies around in it. When his time is done in office, he gets to keep it. Clear violation. No, nothing at all like the Statue of Liberty. You morons.
Well, yeah, and their explanations are ridiculous, comparing it to the Statue of Liberty. Come on. We're not that dumb, and you can't possibly be that dumb. That's apples and oranges, and it's a direct. The Statue of Liberty was a gift to this country. This gift is directly to Donald Trump. Now, some of them will come out and go, "Oh, you don't understand. This is a gift to the U.S. Air Force." And I said, "Why does the largest air force in the world need a used luxury passenger jet?" I have a feeling if we need that, that is probably pretty well covered. And if it's a gift to the Air Force, are you then saying they gift it to the Air Force and then as a parting gift to Donald Trump, the Air Force gifts it to Donald Trump so he can take it to the library? That makes no fucking sense.
Not at all. And we just signed a deal with Boeing for a new Air Force One last year, or I think in Trump's
Right.
first time in office. I still have a hard time saying that because I don't think he won that one either. you know,
Well,
but
it's taken too long. He wants the palace out there during his
mhm,
reign, and it's not
right.
going to be till the end of it. Here's the other thing he said about Qatar. He wanted to take credit for this. He says, we got Qatar to sign a deal with Boeing for a couple, three jets for $1 billion or whatever. And here's my thought. Donald Trump was responsible for that deal with Boeing, as if they've never done a deal like this before.
Yeah,
Yet the plane that they're going to give Donald Trump is a Boeing. So
yeah,
I'm guessing this deal may have been done earlier and then he's
yeah.
just trying to take credit for it. That
Now, of
sounds
course.
like Donald Trump all the fucking way.
Well, he's trying to take credit for saving the world from World War III with India and Pakistan, which they were never going to use nuclear weapons to begin with. So no World War III. And they both say he had nothing to do with that. Get out of
Right.
here. You know, go peddle your papers, Donnie, because no, you didn't have anything to do with it.
Well, and I wonder, Donald Trump kept telling us how he was the greatest champion for Israel. He's done
Hmm.
more for the Jewish people than anyone.
Yeah.
And he's pretty much abandoned Netanyahu because Netanyahu doesn't want the war to end. And Donnie's frustrated because he wants a Nobel Peace Prize. He wants to end the war, but he sees that Netanyahu isn't going to do that. And so he's kind of abandoned him. If you're not going to do what we want to do, we're out of it. So now he's consorting with Qatar, which supports Hamas, Israel's enemy. He's talking about lifting sanctions from Syria, which is Israel's mortal enemy, and 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 I got to think Israel's not feeling too good about Donald Trump at this point. When you start consorting with our enemies, and you said you were our greatest champion, how is Benjamin Netanyahu, who's a goofy fuck in his own right, going to be accepting this? And is that relationship going to continue?
Well, just a couple of things on Netanyahu. He's not a statesman. He's a criminal. He's always been a criminal. He still is. Okay. So yeah, he'll play Trump for whatever he can get from him and pretend they're friends and so forth. And he won't say anything about Hamas. There's a great deal of evidence that, quite frankly, that Benjamin Netanyahu was just as responsible for the attack on Israel as Hamas was. I mean, he basically set it up, gave him money, pulled guards away from the border, set it up so it was going to happen. And there's a lot of evidence out there. Just do some googling on your own, and you'll find it. Netanyahu knew he was going to prison if he was not able to stay in office, so he created war so he could stay in office. It sounds a lot like a guy named Donald Trump, who
Right.
would did anything he possibly could, tried to overthrow the government so he could stay in office. They're birds of a feather, and sure, that's why Trump gets along with Kim Jong Un, and he gets along with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, because they are ruthless, ruthless people. They are totally amoral. And just don't forget, okay, that 9/11 Saudis, every one
Yeah,
of them except
exactly.
one, who was a Yemeni. So it was a Saudi attack on the United States. They're not our friends. They never have been, and they need to lob a few nukes into Riyadh and be done with it. I don't
Well,
mean
and
that seriously, but I exaggerate for effect. But these people are not our friends.
and Osama bin Laden is from Saudi Arabia. He's the guy
Exactly.
behind this whole thing. And so we go attack Iraq, which was ridiculous and which was George W. Bush's absolute failure. Um, it the thing about it is you were talking about how Benjamin Netanyahu knows how to play Donald Trump.
Yes.
Vladimir Putin knows how to play Donald Trump. The Crown
Exactly.
Prince of Saudi Arabia knows how to play Donald Trump. The Qatarans, they know how to play Donald Trump. Everybody thinks he's over there cutting deals and being the master of the art of the deal. Every one of these people is smart enough to know how to play him, and they are playing him amazingly.
Yeah.
And the amount of damage that is coming out of this to this country by how he's behaving in the Middle East and with England and with China, it's really devastating ultimately, and how it's going to affect this country. It's going to take a lot of time to fucking fix that shit.
Yeah, if it can be. I mean, I try to remain optimistic to a point, but
Yeah,
now I see that the Democrats. Let's jump back to them. We have to center our opposition there because they have the structure and so forth where they could offer some resistance here if they would get
right.
off their ass and do it. We've got David Hogg here, whose claim to fame is that he survived a shooting and then he tried to make. Since then, he's been trying to move politics forward in a progressive way. DNC is trying to get rid of him now because he basically said the Democrats need to get off their ass, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, they're trying to get rid of David Hogg. Right now, you've got Bernie Sanders and AOC touring the country, and they're raising huge crowds. They're much more than any rally that Donald Trump ever thought about. The future is with the progressives. The future is with the young progressives. AOC, David Hogg, the young lady Jasmine Crockett from
Right.
Texas. These are the future of the Democratic Party. The rest are just anchors. You know, Adam Schiff, all of these people. Who's the guy in the Senate now? The Senate Majority Leader. I mean, Minority Leader. Yeah,
Schumer.
Schumer, the waste of space, all of them. You know, they needed the Katie Porters and the David Hoggs and and the old guard like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and so forth. They need a coalition here to get rid of that dead wood, or we're done.
Well, here's an old guy reference, and excuse me for the young people listening. Go, that's stupid. I don't care. I tend to be stupid. Everybody, these old people are all playing Monopoly, and the
Mhm.
young people are playing Minecraft on their computers.
Right.
Schumer and all these older people aren't playing the game that's in front of them. They're playing old school politics like the 90s and early 2000s. I've said it before. This is a fucking street fight. This
Yes.
is something that needs a more aggressive, more assertive, and more of this time. And Schumer and Pelosi and even Hakeem Jeffries to a certain extent aren't capable of fighting in this realm. And if we want to win, we've got to be able to bring it to that level. I was talking to Kristen yesterday, um, who was a reality TV producer for a time. She's not anymore, but she was. And I said, the mistake I think the Democrats are making, and it sounds silly, it sounds frivolous for this country, but you can't just come out and say, well, here's the deal, and we're going to fix this, and we're going to fix this. We're going to be just giving this information straight away. You got to take a look at the Republicans. And unfortunately, we aren't as sophisticated as a people anymore. So, in
Mhm.
order to get the message across, we got to be a little fucking entertaining about it. We got to be loud. We
Exactly.
got to be boisterous. I mean, look at Joe Rogan. He's not a newsman, but he has some impact. Look at
Yes.
all these other fucks. They are newsmen. You've got to be entertaining. You've got to be aggressive. And I think that's where the people, the Democrats, are now having the problem when they go on Fox News, other than Buttigieg, or they have people from the right on their shows. If you are standing next to a Trumplefuck, you better be attacking them and not trying to play nice with them. Otherwise, you're going to get canceled.
Yeah, you need to bring the equivalent of an ice pick with you and put it right in their
Yeah,
temple. I mean, you really do. I mean,
you
they're going to
do.
come after you. You got to be able to give it right back. You got to have them ready to hit them. I mean, you got to they have it easier because all they have to do is lie.
Right.
You have to contradict those lies. That's always harder. It's always harder. You have to have your evidence. You have to have your ducks in a row. And they are not doing that. You got Marjorie Taylor Greene out there trying to get the cop who killed George Floyd off, claiming that Floyd died of a drug overdose. We saw the video. We know what happened. Chauvin is in jail. He's going to stay in jail because even if Trump pardoned him, he'd still be there on the state charges. So it's a frivolous argument, but it gets headlines. It gets her attention. it gets people going. Well, he died of a drug overdose. I didn't know that. You gotta fight those lies and call them out to their face, which I give Crockett credit for doing. Jasmine Crockett. I give David Hogg and AOC and the old guard who's always been there, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and those folks who tell it like it is every time, and they know they have the knowledge to do it. But you got to contradict, you got to fight, you got to bring the ice pick.
Well, you make a good point. There are people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. There are some old people that understand the fight and are taking the fight to where it needs to go to. It's not just old people that are caught up in this establishment Democrat thing where they're just playing nice and they're just doing everything they can to protect their position. I mean, that's one thing we found out about members of Congress. It seems like their priority, number one, is keeping their job. And that's why they soft soap shit or they soft shoe around shit. And there's young people in in the uh, in the Congress that are doing it too. And I think Democrats don't like David Hogg uh, because he says the job I've got is pretty much ceremonial and I shouldn't even be doing this, but somebody's got to do it. And he comes from a good point of view. He's a young man. He's going to have to live with what's left after you and I are dead. So I don't fault him for fighting, and I think they look at it as kind of a risky situation by taking out people that may be easy wins in their districts and try to replace them with somebody who would do something. But this is the kind of risk that needs to be taken if we want change in this country.
Yeah, what's going on with the Democrats right now? To make up an analogy out of my head right now, there's an arsonist running around town and he's setting fire to houses, right? Well,
Yeah,
the Democrats, the leadership right now is saying, let's all run inside and carry out everything we can before the house goes up in flames.
right.
The young people are so going, let's find the arsonist and kill that motherfucker. So
Yeah,
that's the difference. And one is action and one is trying to salvage what you can, because quite frankly, the boomers, you and me, Mike, we're dug in. We
yeah,
had our retirement set. Everything was we were ready to put our feet up and just coast until it was over, right? I mean
right.
that's pretty much what I had in mind. But now, and it really pisses me off that I have to get back in this and worry about Social Security, worry about a government pension, and all of these things that affect me directly. And not to mention the fact that I know people on SNAP, I know people on Medicaid who are going to suffer greatly when these programs are canceled. And not only that, this big beautiful bill that the Republicans are now finally getting to, there will they promise no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. Well, they didn't do any of that. Okay,
Well,
on
it's not in the
TikTok,
bill.
yeah, other places you'll see people. Oh, they did this. They didn't do it. No, it didn't happen. What they did do is raise taxes incredibly on people making $15,000 and less, $30,000 and less. I mean, we're talking 70% in some cases. It's progressive, by the way, just like the last tax bill was. Progressive increases on poor people and middle class people, and immediate cuts and permanent cuts on corporations and rich people, and borrowing $5 trillion to pay for it, as well as raising taxes on everybody else. The biggest amount of money that's ever been borrowed, increasing the debt ceiling, I mean, by $5 trillion. That's in their bill. And why is that? So they can cut taxes on billionaires and corporations. That's what's in there. Look it up. It's common knowledge. It's right there. I'm not making anything up. That's what they're going to get through here, because the Democrats will not be able to stop it because they're doing it by reconciliation, which should not be allowed, by the way.
What's interesting is that they're going after the poor people to take money from them, right? People making under
Yes.
15. If you make under $15,000, you're probably homeless in this country. You can't even rent an apartment uh, for less than $800 to $1,000 a month in most places, in most bigger cities. But they're doing it to them because it's easy. It's downright predatory.
Yeah.
to go after people who don't have the voice, like say the middle class or whatever. So they're doing that, but understand that's just the first step. That's how they do things. They
Yes.
take it step by step. They go after the poor people, then they go after the middle class. Uh, I heard, and of course they're trying to cut Medicaid. It's really weird because they promised they weren't cutting Medicaid. Donald Trump said we're not going to cut Medicaid, Social Security, or Medicare. He said that, and they said that even after the preliminaries for this bill came out. We never said anything about Medicare. You did because of where you're taking the money from. You didn't say Medicaid, but you're taking it from Medicaid. And now they're flat out saying we're taking it from Medicaid. And their explanation for this is we're just getting rid of the waste
Mhm.
because we want to make it stronger and make it last longer. I'm going to tell you something. You probably remember this. When I was 18, 19 years old, people said to me, "Oh, you're never getting Social Security because it's on the verge of collapse. You'll never get it." And at that point in time, I thought, "Well, what the fuck do I care? I don't know anything about Social Security." But now, 45 years later, I'm here on Social Security and Medicare. Republicans have been doing this for decades, trying to tell us how unstable and how untenable Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid is. And it's never gone away because it's always been protected. Now we're at a point we have a Republican Party that's doing everything they can to take an inch at a time to take it away. And I think they're finding some pushback. Under reconciliation, they might be able to do it if they don't have Democrats' help. But they got Republicans scared to
Yes.
death about signing on to this motherfucker, and they should because it would be political suicide.
Yeah, anybody who votes for it, I mean, they'll lie and so forth, and but they won't have town halls anymore because they're scared of that, right? Um, but they'll try to hide. They'll try to say that they did this or that. I don't really think that they want to eliminate Social Security. What I think they want to do is privatize it, just like they want to do with everything else. They want to privatize it so then you're still paying money, but it will be for non-existent health care. It will be for the illusion of health care, which is what pretty much private insurance is like now.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, I mean, basically, you pay money for them to tell you, no, we're not going to give you money for your operation. Or if you have that operation, you're going to have to pay this huge copay, so you can't afford it anyway. This is what they have in mind for health care. And I guess it's so that we just die off sooner. I'm not sure. They don't want to have to take care of old people. They don't want us to live past 60, 65. They figure that's enough, unless, of course, you're rich, and then you could live to 200 and they'll put your head on a robot or something because that's coming. I mean, that Elon and Bezos and these guys, they have something set up where they think they'll be able to keep going. You just know they do.
They the earlier in the year there was this big news story how Luigi shot and killed one of the CEOs of United Health or Optum. I don't know what it
Yeah.
is. Um, and he was angry about how his mother was treated and how they treated other people. The interesting story now is it started out with we heard that United Health, probably the biggest healthcare company in the world, and I know people that work there, and they're all trying to do the right things. The issue isn't the people who work for United Health; it's the higher ups and how they handle things. But we find out their stock falls through the floor like by 25%. That's significant. Then we hear the CEO is resigning for personal reasons. And then people at
Mhm.
United Health go, whoa, what the fuck is going on? And then we hear the DOJ is investigating fraud, Medicare fraud. And where that's coming from is these Medicare Advantage
Yes.
situations. And I don't know, some people get Advantage and they like it. When I signed up for Medicare, I said, I don't want that Advantage stuff because I've had my life on private health care. I'm just going to get the regular Medicare. If it's more expensive, it's not as good, I don't give a fuck. I want the Medicare. I don't want to be stuck with another private insurance company. And now we've got United Health, which has a pretty sizable sample of Medicare Advantage, they're not only losing money, but they're under investigation for fraud. That's frightening. And if that company can get in trouble for it, you can bet there's going to be some others.
Well, they're all doing it. I guarantee you that. I mean, it's like Wells Fargo, who had the bogus account scandal a while back,
Right,
right? The
right.
bank, and two of them were found guilty of covering this up, and they were fined something like $8 billion, something like that. Trump just reduced it to like 130. You know,
Right.
this just shows you exactly where the Republicans are, and Trump in particular. They gave him a big donation. That's why he did it. You know, same with he quashed a thing where they were supposed to be working on eliminating salmonella in chicken, right? Well, Pilgrim whatever gave him $1 million, and then well, that went away. So this is what's going on now. It is the wholesale selling of government oversight. All you need to do is give Trump some money, and by golly, if you can skip those regulations, they don't count anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's happening in the Middle East. That's what's happening in China. Um, he's just selling off as much as he can get, and he's putting money in his pocket to do it. You know, the plane thing is about money. Actually, I think it's more about ego with the plane thing. He loves people showing um, deference or adulation toward
Yeah,
him. And I don't know that even if he never used the plane, the fact that he can say this country gave him a plane because he's so powerful. Um, but we watch him on stage now, and I think you brought it up earlier. He's definitely declining cognitively. I mean, he goes off on tangents. He talks about stuff that has nothing to do with what the topic at hand is. We see him do these press conferences with Mark Carney, with other people. He loves to do that to show how smart he is. But exactly the opposite occurs. It's
right.
embarrassing every time he speaks.
Yeah, exactly. And you see him too. He's full tilt demagogue now. He wants this parade for his birthday, right? And now they're putting up these big images of him, these big banners on public buildings in
Wow.
Washington D.C. I mean, like I've alluded to before, you know, I was an intelligence gathering person in the military, still wearing the old uniform, on North Korea. That's straight out of the Kim Jong Un playbook, the giant images, the adoration of the leader. This is you know, pick one: Stalin, Hitler, Mussolini, Franco, Kim Jong Un, Mao Zedong. The idolization of the great leader is a part and parcel of all of it. And we're seeing it for the first time right here in the good old US of A, as long as it lasts.
You know, when Donald Trump first started talking about that parade, it sounded ridiculous. It is ridiculous. And I said, I don't think that will ever happen. The public opinion pressure will be too much. And I'm not so sure about that now. It may happen. And I'm at a point right now where I hope it happens because it will be such a ridiculous spectacle. It will get fucked up. There will be some problems there. It opens up the door for all kinds of, you know, protest and that sort of thing. And I think we need that kind of spectacle to embarrass Donald Trump. Because remember, Donald Trump always fucks up. So he might have grand plans for this parade, but it will fail miserably. So I'm at the point right now where I didn't think it would happen, but right now I hope it happens because it'll be yet another opportunity for Donald Trump to make a fool of himself.
Well, some people have said what we need is a Tiananmen Square moment where one person
Yeah.
walks out in front of the tank and stops it. I get a better idea. We know the parade route. Why doesn't everybody just drive to Washington that day, park their car, and walk away?
Yeah.
You know what they're
Yeah.
going to
That
do?
sounds.
You know, or buy a junker, or rent one, or whatever. Rent a car, rent a box truck, whatever. Just park them along right in the middle of the parade route. No parade. It'd take them forever to move them all, right? Walk away, take the keys.
But don't you think if the parade happens, and because it's planned to be so much like a Vladimir Putin or Kim Jong Un type of parade, won't that be a moment in time when people go, "Oh fuck, this isn't
But
good"?
I don't think so. The people who would anyway.
Right.
Were already horrified by it, right? By the idea they see what's happening, but the hoi polloi is not just the MAGAs, but people have lost the ability for critical thinking. Uh, Part of it is because it started with TV and then it moved into the social media and so forth. People believe what they see. We have become a nation of believers, not a nation of thinkers. And
Right.
you have to be able to know how to um, the great gift of education is knowing how to look it up, knowing the sources to find what is real. A lot of them are government sources. You just have to know where to go. You can find the real statistics and so forth. Although one of Trump's guys, I think it was his Treasury Secretary, was talking about cooking the statistics. I mean, he basically straight up front was saying, "Well, we control the statistics, so we can differentiate this from that from whatever," which is probably true. But your point is the gloves have to be off now. I'm tired of guys like Bill Maher who carried some water for a long time now saying, well, if we get rid of Trump, we've still got, half the country who you got to deal with. Well, that was after World War II. You had all of these Germans who were part of the National Socialist Party, the Nazis, but as soon as the war was over and their vision cleared, they realized how they'd been they no longer were believers. They could see it was in their faces what had happened to their country because of these policies. I have to believe that a wake up call will come, but only if, as you say, we take off the gloves and we fight these people. You can't cozy up. I'm sorry, you just can't.
Now, to say that if we get rid of Donald Trump, we still got half the country. That's not entirely
No.
true. That's more like maybe a third of the country at best. But if we get rid of Donald Trump, that doesn't fix anything. I disagree completely because I think if Donald Trump is no longer in the picture for whatever reason, there's nobody really to lead that organization. Nobody is going to be accepted as a leader as Donald Trump has. JD Vance isn't going to do shit. They hate that dumb motherfucker. Um, so to say, well, if we got rid of Donald Trump, it's not going to help anyway. I disagree. You got to make that first step. I mean, everybody thinks you can walk in and do away with Trump and MAGA and it'll all be better. That's not going to happen. We need to take it a step at a time. We need Donald Trump out of power. Then it'll be much easier to break down MAGA. That would be the second step. And then the third step would be starting to try to repair the shit and the rubble that Donald Trump has left. This is not going to be a quick turnaround. We've got to start someplace. And taking away a demagogue, a dictator, uh, cognitively diminished piece of shit, that's the first step. And that's what we need to do. We need him out of this position. And then everything else will fall by the wayside. The power won't be there anymore for these lower end fucking idiots.
And we need people like David Hogg,
Yeah,
and
I agree.
AOC, and Jasmine Crockett. These people are smart. I mean, Jasmine does a street talk thing, but she's sharp as a tack. She knows exactly what she's doing. Same with AOC, same with David Hogg, and there are others, many others, but there is so much to do. First thing, you've got to get money out of politics. Citizens United has to be thrown out, period. And you got to break up the big fortunes. Jeff Bezos and all of these guys who were standing behind Trump at the inauguration. Every one of them has to be broken down. Their companies have to be broken up. You need to use half-heartedly. You need to use whatever you have to do to destroy these mega fortunes. Because when you have that much money, Elon's in there too. You can buy whatever you want, and that's what they did. They just bought an election. Trump didn't win any more than he won the first time. It was bought for him. And the television news, and nobody listens to radio news much anymore, probably, and maybe NPR, but the news media have to be, you have to be able to prove somehow or other that you are not dictating the content. And
Right.
we see like with 60 Minutes just now, they settling a lawsuit and they're trying to do a merger and so forth. So they're putting heat on 60 Minutes. I'm sorry. That is just at this point in time, I cannot truly tell you that any of the major media is in any way honest. They just won't report. I mean, we didn't see much of all of these big protests that we had all over the country ever since Trump got reelected or managed to get back into office. I'll put it that way. Then all over the place, these big rallies, we don't see that. They show us a Trump rally, but they don't show us the counter protests and so forth. Maybe a little bit of a clip here or there, a 10-second clip on the evening news, maybe something like that. The media is bought. The media is bought by oligarchs.
Yeah. That's the thing. When we were growing up, 60 Minutes was kind of the bastion for journalism.
Yes,
They did all the hard work, they asked the hard questions, and they didn't care who they were talking to. But after CBS has done what they've done, it just proves that apparently in this country, in the era of Donald Trump, everything's for sale.
it
The
is.
Supreme Court, the judicial system, the media, the fucking Congress, it's all for sale. And Donald Trump is grifting money from foreign countries and buying up everything he can in this country. And that's a scary time because if we don't, I always complain about the media. And the media, a lot of people don't understand this. The media is a big factor in having a democracy. And
Yes,
we don't, you worry about the judicial system and Donald Trump co opting the judicial system, but he already co opted the media. And while it's not one of the branches of government, it is an important branch that keeps everything in those other three branches stable. And now we don't even have that because that's been bought off and paid for.
exactly. And people forget, or maybe they never knew, because I don't know what they teach in history in schools anymore. But how
Yeah.
this country got started was largely, it wasn't because we had this big army that we went against the British with. No, it was in the newspapers the battles were fought. You had Hamilton and John Jay and Thomas Paine and all of these people publishing article after article after article. And of course, Benjamin Franklin and so forth, telling the people the truth, telling them this is what we can be an independent country. We can do what's never been done before. We can break away from Britain and create something brand new where the government is of the people, by the people, for the people. It was the writing, it was that got people on board with this idea of we don't have to be British, we can be American. That's who did it. It was the people writing those. Those were the people that won this country.
Uh, it's every day there is something that happens or Donald Trump says something that's absolutely ridiculous.
Yes.
Um, Bruce Springsteen did a
Mm-hmm.
concert, and Bruce Springsteen is probably what you would call a patriot based on his music and all of that. He's a darling of musical history. He went on stage and basically said we are being controlled or run by a treasonous dictator, and he had a lot of bad things to say about Donald Trump.
All true.
Now, it's all true. And that took a lot of courage. And, maybe not so much courage because he's already scored his fame and all this other stuff. And now he's an older guy. He's probably a billionaire and he doesn't have to worry about it. But I credit him for stepping up and saying that. And of course, Donald Trump says, he's like a dried up prune. I never liked him anyway. He's losing. Bruce Springsteen. Bruce Springsteen. You think you'd be smart enough not to go after Bruce Springsteen or try to claim that he's a nobody. But he takes it a step farther just to prove his point. And this is what Donald Trump always does. He'll throw something else in the mix to support what he's saying, even though what he's saying is bullshit. He said, take Taylor Swift. Ever since I talked about Taylor Swift, she's not so hot so anymore. Well, she's not doing her Eras tour right now, so that's probably why she's not in the news as much as she was. But if he thinks he took down Taylor Swift, we need a Taylor Swift Bruce Springsteen concert
Oh,
on the
yeah.
fucking White House lawn during that parade, and we'll see how many people go to that concert as opposed to that fucking parade.
Well, this is the thing. That counter programming would be a great idea. Throw a big party, and nobody's going to show up to watch a bunch of tanks rumble down. And let's
Right.
let's. I think it's military abuse to even suggest such a thing. These are our fighting men and women. They don't need to be put on parade to salve some ego of this worthless individual who fooled enough people and spent enough money in the right places to get back into the White House. There is no honor here. There's nothing to celebrate. And then he puts these laughable clowns in positions of authority. Linda McMahon, Pete Hegseth. Name one who isn't a complete idiot. You mentioned Christy Nome, and they can't run a department. I mean, we just saw the congressional hearings in which we see that Kash Patel is has no budget. He has not given a budget. He was required to give a budget months ago. He hasn't come up with it. And Christy Nome is spending money she doesn't have. They can't run anything. All they're there for is to disrupt and destroy, not to do anything that actually accomplishes anything. And that why people can't see this and why we aren't marching on Washington right now with pitchforks and axe handles. I make it pick handles are better, or baseball bats work too. But enough of us, the military will back down, or join us. It's happened before. France, Soviet Union, or Russia. That's where those revolutions came from, when people saw how corrupt it was at the top, and there was no way to change it except by direct action. It will get to that point if this is allowed to continue.
No, I've said this before. We can talk about the cruelty or the overturn, attempting to overturn democracy, but the people he's placed in these positions, the Christine Nomes, the Kash Patels, I think our biggest, most immediate problem is the incompetence. I mean, they probably won't be able to accomplish some of the cruelty they want to commit because they're fucking incompetent. But in the process, they pretty much derail every department. And
Mhm.
and those departments happen to be the Department of Defense, the FBI, Homeland Security, all this shit. They're derailing all these things. And what that does basically is make this country a less safe place to be. I mean, America was a safe place to be, but we have no national security now, it would seem. Our Defense Department, we've got a clown running it. So if something does happen, why are we to believe that he would react accordingly? Or Department of Homeland Security, Christy Nome. I saw her being questioned on in front of Congress. And what an absolute idiot. I mean, somebody sat there and said, I want you to resign. And she with her Botox face, sat there still and didn't say anything. And whenever she answered a question, or any of these fuckers answer a question, they don't answer the question. They talk in circles, they dance around, and it's the same old bullshit that we're used to seeing from Donald Trump.
Exactly. I mean, these are not quality people. Mainly what they were good at and why they were there is that they lie well. They just
Uh,
lie straight out without any compunction. Lie, 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 and do what Donald Trump wants them to do, which is destroy whatever it is he put them in charge of. That is their worth to him. Complete loyalty, even to the point of realizing what they're doing is harmful or stupid, but yet they do it.
I would push back a little bit when you say they lie well. I don't think they're good liars. I think they just lie well enough for a percentage of stupid motherfuckers that will believe them for whatever reason. Because I think the vast majority look at Christy Nome and Cash Patel. I mean, Cash Patel, they say you're supposed to have a budget. And he acts like he doesn't understand or doesn't know. He's got people working on them. Were you supposed to have it 2 weeks ago? Yeah, well, we'll get it in when we get it in. That's not how the FBI is run. If Christopher Wray had done that, he'd be crucified.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, and you're right. Thanks for the correction. They don't lie well. They just lie to the point where it confuses people. Remember what I said? Believers, not thinkers.
Yeah.
They can't put one against the other. You got the questioner saying this, 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 and they just come back with a bunch of whataboutisms, or like we saw with Johnson, the Speaker of the House, addressing Trump's obvious criminal acts right now in the way he's making money with his Bitcoin thing, where it's just foreign governments buying this shit up and giving him money, bribing him. It's straight up
Right.
bribe. Well, at least it was in real, it's out in the open, not like the Biden crime family, which is something the Republicans made up. There is no Biden crime family. Joe Biden did nothing that was illegal ever that I can think of ever.
We had a
Joe's
bunch of
all
investigations, never any finding any evidence. What would be more
nothing,
proof than that?
nothing. And of course, they had, his son was fallible, no more fallible than
Don
Trump's
Jr.?
kids. Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Same kind of thing, right? But except Don Jr. Is a cokehead. We see him on his podcast and so, or whatever it is he does.
Still,
Um, we see he's totally hopped up all the time. His brother's an idiot, and at least the daughter, the one with anything on her uh, a head on her shoulders to a degree, has pulled out completely. But yet, the Kushner family is just still very much involved in all of this Mideast crap too. So, I can't give her a pass either because she's still part of it. It's the Trump crime family, of course, because they are all criminals, every one of them.
yeah. I heard somebody say one time, and I couldn't believe it. It was like Michael Cohen or somebody like that said, actually, Ivanka's the dumbest one among them. But
Hmm.
Ivanka's smart enough to look good and not say crazy shit.
Yeah,
So maybe she just looks better. I mean, they all were raised the same way. Donald Trump had nothing to do with raising those
no,
children. It
nothing.
wasn't until after the fact. They probably hated that motherfucker up until they could get something from him because they are part of that bloodline. It's a very transactional thing. You give me something, I give you something. You were talking about Mike Johnson, and there's so much shit going on. I have a feeling that Mike Johnson's job is in danger right now because this big, beautiful bill needs to pass for Donald Trump to be happy and for some of these dumb Republicans um, to be happy. But if he can't get this thing passed, he's going to get the wrath after it's said and done. He should be, in their minds, he should be able to put this together. The problem is they're trying to sell something that is going to cost a lot of Republicans their jobs, and they're a little hinky about it. They're not going to sign on. And if this deal doesn't get done, I mean, think about this. You got these oligarchs all around the country that supported Donald Trump for one reason, to get a tax break.
Yeah, and
The
regulations eased or done away
the
with.
right, and the stock market tanks,
Yeah,
and Donald Trump pulls back from China, which is exactly what you and I both said he would do. It doesn't matter. I want to talk about that more too because we
yeah,
think we're safe from that China thing. We're not.
no,
But so the stock market tanks, and all the oligarchs say, "Yeah, that sucks. It cost us a lot of money, but at least we get that tax break." If that tax break doesn't come, if that does not happen, and they also lost money in the stock market. They're talking big things. Oh, the stock market's coming back. Look, motherfucker, you're at 42,000. When he came into offices, it was at 45,000. We're still 3,000 down from where the height was in February. So nobody's won anything on that motherfucker. But if they lose money in the stock market and they don't get the tax break, You're going to see a lot of oligarchs changing their mind because they're getting nothing out of this but fucked.
Yeah, well, I hope they do. I hope they change their mind and they get fucked. I because I want them fucked. I want them broken up. I want all of their companies broken up into small pieces so that they can never again marshal the funds to buy the government like they have done.
Right.
They did the same thing back in the 1880s, bought the government, and did what they wanted until they finally engineered a Great Depression, and then they lost their power. And then Roosevelt saved us, and we had prosperity for 30 years, and then Reagan fucked it. So that's all you need to know, okay? Democrats fix it, Republicans fuck it. That's it.
Now, this whole thing with China, it's amazing to me about Donald Trump. Anytime something bad comes out about Donald Trump, he will manufacture something to contradict that. And I'll
Yeah.
give you an example. When we were waiting for all these deals that he was going to have, and we're 20 days in or 30 days in or whatever, and somebody says, "Where are the deals? You haven't had one deal, not one deal." So then 2 days later, he comes up with this great deal from the UK, which is ridiculous because nothing really changed. And UK amounts to maybe 3% of our trade. So it's a nothing burger. And he puts that out. Oh, we got a great deal. But it was transactional to people complaining about it. Then people are complaining about the China deal. And he's seeing what's going to happen. So he goes in there. China won't call him back. They go in, and the meeting was to strategize for the actual meetings to negotiate this. This was not a negotiation of the trade thing.
No.
So then Donald Trump gets scared because of all the negative shit that's going to happen from this China tariff thing. And he says, we'll put a pause on it. And then comes out and tells us we got a deal. No, we don't have a deal. We have a 90-day pause. You've had pauses before, and the deals have never been struck. There's no deal with China. And I don't think China is going to deal with Donald Trump. How can you? He lies constantly. You can't cut a deal with somebody who's going to change the deal 10 minutes after doing it.
Yeah, we have the history of that. He renegotiated NAFTA and then
Right.
later said whoever did this was an idiot. He actually said that, and it was him, of course, but he renegotiated NAFTA, and then he gets back in as president. The first thing he does is throw it out the window. How can you deal with someone like that?
Well, you can't. You can't. And now the China thing, he's gotten some reasonable deniability now. You can say, well, we cut a deal with China. No, you didn't cut a deal with China. But he knew the impending disaster that was coming because of those China tariffs. And now I think he has people believing that because they have this pause, everything's going to be all right. But it's not going to be all right because the ships aren't
Believers,
coming yet.
not thinkers.
Right.
Believers, not thinkers, every time.
I mean, have you
No,
heard anything about China starting the ships back up to this country?
no,
I haven't.
no, not at all. The ships aren't coming. The trucking industry, the independent truckers will be destroyed. They'll lose their trucks because they have to make their payments.
Right.
It's a razor thin way to make a living. Okay, it takes a lot of time. My father was a long haul trucker his whole life. I know how it is. I saw him working for 5 cents a mile for a long
Yeah.
time until he got a union job, became a Teamster, and then he started to do well. So this is why I'm the way I am. I noticed things that happened in my life, and I can tell you union is better than not. Right to work is a scam, and so forth and so on. And you don't give tax breaks to rich people because they will just keep the money. It does not trickle. It's never trickled. It will never trickle.
The only time trickle down works is when Donald Trump fucks up with these tariffs, and then it does trickle down to us where we pay the price.
Right.
But in terms of the real trickle down that Ronald Reagan started, it hasn't worked in 45, 50 years. It will never work because, as you say, uh, wherever the money was going to trickle down, uh, they waffle stopped the shit of the drain, so it's all clogged up and everything stays with the shit bags on top. And up until the time you can trust somebody to actually do what I've often said, okay, we're going to get what they should do is give you a tax break. But in order to get this tax break, you're required to do this, 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 and this. but
And
they
that's the
never
way it
do that.
was. That's the way it was before Reagan, right? I mean, back in the 50s, pardon me, we had like a 90% tax rate on some money, some manufacturers, some oligarchs, right?
Right.
But there was a carrot and stick thing. Okay, it's 90% if you just take in the money and don't do anything with it. But if you reinvest it into manufacturing, opening plants, doing this sort of thing, then that goes down. You are rewarded for reinvesting the money so that it spurs the economy. And Reagan turned that on its head. He just, we give these people these tax breaks, but there was no requirement for them to do anything with it other than they would promise to do that. But what they did was offshore the money. And they also at the same time found out that it is so much easier to make money just with money. You don't have to open a plant to make widgets because then you got to move the widgets to market and you got to create a demand for the widgets. But if you take the money, say you're an insurance company, right? And you're taking in all this money that you're supposed to pay these claims for people, but instead of doing that, you take that money and invest it in crazy shit. And sure, you may make some money, but you lose a lot of money. But it doesn't do anybody any good but you. If it works, if it fails, the government will bail you out. That's what we got.
So, what do you think is going to happen? Uh, People are feeling comfortable that he's got this pause with China, but there's still a lot of problems, very close, imminent. Uh,
Well, I
Even
can
if the
tell you what my
ships,
wife and I are thinking of doing, and that's investing most of our in real estate.
yeah,
I
there's
mean,
something to be said about that.
real estate is real.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. And and if a lot of people do that, then the stock market goes to shit.
Yeah.
So, and but that's the position you're putting people in. You've got to worry about yourself. But with China, now they haven't sent ships for at least a couple 3 weeks, right?
Right.
If they started ships again today, and I don't know that they have. I don't think they have. If they started ships today, we would have a period of a month or 2 months of a drastically different retail market. We would have empty shelves. We would have prices going higher. And that's going to happen whether Donald Trump paused it or not. And that's what people have to understand. The pain is still coming.
Yes.
But Donald Trump wants to say, well, I don't know. It must be China's fault because I cut a deal. No, you cut a deal to pause it, and you did it too fucking late. You
Yeah.
doubled down and you doubled down, and now it's too late. You can't fix this thing even if you took all the tariffs off. And he didn't do that. You put them at 30%, which is still higher than what it was, which means prices, if they are even coming into this country, are going to be higher than they're used to.
Well, right, and he still is still the same line of bullshit. Well, he says, well, we took in $15 billion because of the tariffs. No, you didn't take in a damn dime. You know, some prices went a little higher, so maybe the tax you might get a little bit more tax money, but it certainly wasn't any $15 billion. That is a made up figure. There's nothing to it, and it is still you and me who pay the tariff if we buy this crap. But what you're going to see is people not buying crap, and you're going to see places like Walmart and stuff closing stores. They're already talking about raising prices, by the way.
Right.
You
This has
know,
got to
so,
upset Donald Trump when Walmart comes out and says we've got to raise prices. It's directly a contradiction to what Donald Trump suggests is going to happen. And Walmart is a big supporter of Donald Trump, so it's interesting. Their prices are going up. Other places are saying their prices are going up. Donald Trump wants us to believe it's all done because he paused it. It's not. It's still going to be fucked up.
exactly. And I don't weep for Walmart. The Walmart success story was simply, offshoring jobs and then you're offering lower prices because people in China were making the shit that you used to make. So they took your job, sent it to China, and then brought it back, and it's a little bit cheaper than you pay at Target, but you're still getting screwed.
Well, and Donald Trump comes out uh, in these press conferences and such, and he says the same shit. He did it in in America. He's done it in the Middle East. Egg prices coming down, gas prices coming down, everything's
Not,
coming down, and none of that's true. He
no.
knows it's not true. Well, let me ask you about that. I was talking about this with Kristen, and when he was in the interview with the ABC guy named Moran,
Yeah.
and he holds up the picture of the MS-13 for
Right. And it's got that
Kilmar Abrega Garcia.
superimposed MS-13. Yeah.
I don't even think that MS-13 on that hand was intended to be considered a tattoo. I don't
No,
think it was. It was
no.
there saying, well, this thing means M, this thing means S, and this that's what it was. But Donald Trump sat there and said, here's the picture. And Moran says, look, it's photoshopped. And Donald Trump was completely taken aback. You think it's photoshopped? This is real. This is real. I personally think that Donald Trump in that situation wasn't lying as much as
No,
he doesn't know.
no.
Because I
Somebody
think the
showed him that.
people around him, he either misinterpreted or they flat out lied to him because we know they do that. And I can relate that to being a little kid. Dad's going to lose his shit. So you just give him whatever he wants. You keep him happy. You keep him on the right sunny track. I had to do it with my father. And I know these people are dealing with like an abusive dad and they'll do anything to avoid his wrath.
Yeah. I'm not big into computer conspiracy theories, but there are two things that I believe just in my gut. Number one, the assassination attempt was faked. And by the way, there's some new evidence. They did a blood expert and so forth who analyzed the photographs and so forth. It's fake blood. It didn't behave like normal blood does, so
Right.
it was all faked. I'm sorry about the guy they killed, who in the crowd, and the kid who did the shooting, who was killed too. We assume, if that's what we're told anyway. We don't know any details about this. I do believe it was faked 100%. The other thing is, I think he had his wife killed. If he didn't do it himself, he had somebody do it. His first wife, Vaughn. She was found at the bottom of a staircase. She was not an elderly woman by any means, and accidents do happen. But it just so happened that um, the agreement they had that she wouldn't talk about him anymore had just expired.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, all of those sound like crazy conspiracy theories.
They do till
But
they're proved
but
true.
when you look at Donald Trump, it isn't out of the realm of possibility of the things
No.
he would do. People would say, well, and I said, when the shooting first happened, I thought, well, it's fake. And then I heard somebody died. I go, that's too far. They wouldn't have done that.
No, that's not
Uh,
too far. Not for them.
but we know Donald Trump doesn't care about collateral damage. We know a
No.
million people died of COVID because he ignored it.
Yeah.
We know that as many as 12 to 15 people currently have died while being detained by ICE.
Yeah.
You would think that would be a big fucking deal. We would be hearing about that all the time, that people in ICE detention centers have died. It would certainly be big news if it was Democrats doing it. But Donald Trump is fully capable of letting people die and not giving a shit. He's proven that with COVID and other situations. Or Abrega Garcia. They don't care an innocent guy is in a horrible prison in El Salvador. They don't care. All they care about is themselves. The thing about his shooting, at first I thought it was fake, then I thought it wasn't fake, and now I'm going back to thinking it's more fake. And here's why. Donald Trump is all about releasing the RFK, JFK, and MLK information. But we know zero about that shooting. We
That's
know
right.
nothing about it. And if I'm Donald Trump and I got shot and I want to be a hero because of it, I want all that shit exposed. So the question is, why doesn't he want it exposed? Because that's why no one knows anything because of him.
Well, you look at this. I mean, the same study that just came out, the same shooting expert says an AR-15 round, if it draws blood, that means it touched him. There was no
Yeah.
burning. There were no burns. It's a red hot projectile. It also tumbles. It would have ripped his skin off the side of his face if it had even touched it, taken the whole ear.
Right.
A few days later, there's nothing. I'm a fast healer, he says. There's no scarring. You can look at him anytime now. There's no scarring. There's nothing to indicate anything happened there at all. The blood, when the first time I saw it, I said, that's stage blood. Believe me, I know stage blood. I've used it. And it's not nearly as, it doesn't have, it's like corn syrup. Okay. And that's
Right.
what we're looking at there. The other thing is, look at his security detail that day. There was one
Yeah.
woman who struck me. She's trying to put her gun back in her holster and she can't do it. It takes her like, I don't know if she ever got it back in. You talk about your crisis actors, these are not professional security people. Number one, they
Yeah.
look like MEAL Team 6, if you know what I mean. And then
Yeah.
there is a protocol. If somebody shoots at the president, everybody dives on him so they can take the bullet if there's more of them. That didn't happen. They gathered around him. He stood up, waved his fist. That would not happen in a real situation. If these were professionals, that would not happen. It was staged. It was staged. It was staged. And he should be in prison. He should die in prison because of that, because two people did die, the shooter and the man in the crowd.
Yeah. I wonder if we will ever find out about that when he's
Yeah,
done
maybe
and
40
gone.
years down the road.
You think
Maybe,
so?
maybe. Somebody, it's very hard to keep a conspiracy forever. Um, at some point, somebody's going to think, "Oh, I'm getting ready to die. I'm going to go to hell. Maybe I should say something." Maybe these people are so immoral they don't really think about that. Or in the case of guys like uh, Johnson, they are so what's the word I want? It's almost well, they're so enmeshed in a cult that they really believe that anything they do furthers the kingdom of God. That's Johnson right there. And
Right.
there are others. There are others in his administration that are the same way. These ultra evangelicals, they're all that way. They think whatever they think is the will of God, and they're fine if they just do that. It's bullshit, of course. We know it is, but that's the way they are because they believe. They don't think.
Well, the thing about it is Donald Trump, you will never get any kind of confession from him, whether he's on his deathbed or not. If he's
Mhm.
on his deathbed, it's all about him, and he'll be scared and upset and worried about him. He's never going to confess anything. However, there are a lot of people around that are complicit with all of this shit
Yeah.
that will feel the guilt that they should feel about this. Uh, we know what happened during the Watergate investigation. Of course, Richard Nixon got a pardon, so he was free and clear.
Right.
But there were people around him that did go to jail. Didn't
Yeah.
didn't the attorney general even go to jail?
Yeah. He did. What's his face?
Mitchell
Mitchell. Yeah, for sure.
and his wife. His wife is the one that testified against him, which was crazy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they tried to make her out to be, oh, she's just crazy. She
Hmm.
wasn't crazy. She was vindictive, but she had
Yeah.
every right to be. But my
Exactly.
point is, when this is all said and done, do the people around Donald Trump know that they are at risk of investigations, of indictments, of going to jail? I mean, there are people like Elon Musk, maybe even Pam Bondi. She's doing some fucked up shit. We've got Pete Hegseth, who broke national security laws. All these people have no immunity.
Right.
And and I will say something too about Donald Trump's immunity. People don't understand. He does have immunity for professional acts, but
Right.
in that immunity thing, it specifically says you don't have immunity over bribery.
Right.
And he maybe does not know that because what's happening with Qatar and the $400 million jet, that is fucking bribery. And he can go to trial for that. He can get impeached for it if the Republicans decide to do that sort of thing. But there's a lot. There's going to be a lot of investigations, and I think it's important that we do that. I was talking about this with Kristen. It's common for the government, like with Richard Nixon. Oh, let's just let the country heal. If you really want this country to heal after this 10 years of bullshit, We need some accountability. We need some punishment for this. Otherwise, we're going to be dealing with it forever because there'll be others.
Yeah, for it. Let's just bring in something else here. You know, when the first thing he did, one of the first things he did when he got back in power was to cancel immigration, legal, everything.
Yeah.
Just no more immigration, right? And then he suddenly brings in all of these white Afrikaners from South Africa, and you know that
Yeah.
was Elon's call. He probably handpicked them, right? You got to realize too that Elon's money and Peter Thiel's money all is South African money, and
Right.
these are the people that when people were fleeing Germany, the ones who had money, when they saw that the Third Reich was collapsing, they went to South America and they went to South Africa. So
Right.
all of these guys there have that tinge to them. I'm not going to say they're all Nazis, but they're pretty damn close. And you know they ran apartheid up until 1994, which was virtual slavery for the native population of South Africa. Is there pushback on some of these people? Yes. But the brilliance of Nelson Mandela was he had that national reconciliation body that basically forgave a lot of crap. And
Yeah.
we're going to have to do something along those ways. We have to punish the guilty, just like in Nuremberg. We're going to have our own equivalent of Nuremberg trials, where we find out was that assassination attempt a fake? Who facilitated that? Roger Stone. Who was the Pam Bondis and all of these people? I mean, she's already. We assume it's fairly well known that she could have prosecuted Trump for Trump University. She chose not to after she received a $25,000 donation for her campaign fund.
Right.
Trump, he's canceled a lot of regulatory actions that were in place and moving forward because he got a donation from people. That's easily provable. The quid pro quo is so obvious, it's ridiculous. And then you've got Elon Trump coming in with his Doge, canceling contracts and giving them to his companies. We know that. It's right in your face. It's easy to convict these people. It just needs the will to do it. And to do that, we need Congress back. If we can have Congress and a portion of the Supreme Court, then we can do it.
People have said that they expect the equivalent of Nuremberg trials after Donald Trump is out of power and the MAGA is out of power. You think that's a real possibility in this country that we would have those kind of trials?
My fear is only if we gain power back. My fear is we're going to have them, but it's going to be on the other side. You're already hearing Pam Bondi talk about having bringing up charges on members of Congress. You know, they would be show trials, but that goes right with the territory. That's what the Putins of the world do. They bring their opponents up on charges and they put them in prison. It happens all over the world. It happened in Russia. It's happened everywhere where there's a dictator. The opposition winds up in jail
Do you
or
think
dead.
that's what do you think that's what the Trump folks are doing? They're kind of pushing
Yes,
the envelope. They arrest a judge, and now we're hearing that the judge got indicted. I guess that's not so crazy to think about because it's a prosecutor who
right.
is the only one given the story. But then we're hearing that, as it turns out, this judge has immunity from that sort of thing because it's her courtroom and she can do whatever the fuck she wants.
Right.
And Tom Homan be damned. There's nothing he can say about it. So nothing will happen to her. Then they
No.
go arrest the mayor of Newark, which is
Yeah.
just a step farther. And that will be turned into nothing. But do you think that's just a way of softening something so that they can, in fact, go after members of Congress to strike fear into them? Because they'd never convict any members of Congress. They just won't. And I think it would hopefully cause an immense amount of blowback on the Republicans should they even try that.
Well, we hope so. I think it's more of the idea that putting the fear of God in them, so to
Right.
speak. You know, if you do this, and I think that's what Trump was saying about Bruce Springsteen. He goes to a different country to shoot off his mouth. We'll see what happens to him when he comes home. Those were his words, right? So
Yeah.
he's threatening Bruce Springsteen. Bruce has more money and he can kick his ass. So I don't worry so much about Bruce, but yeah, I do think threats against people. and causing them discomfort, having them to have to lawyer up, have to dedicate time and effort to fight this kind of stuff. Yeah, I think that's what it's all about. It's muddying the waters. It's putting the fear of God in them. It's and maybe if the right combination of things fall in place and somebody does get indicted and they do have a trial, who knows?
Well, I'm proud of Bruce Springsteen for doing this. Donald Trump uses these fear tactics,
Yeah.
and some people um submit to it. They okay, I don't want to deal with that. That's in this world, in this day and age, with what we're dealing with Donald Trump and MAGA and such. We need those people to stand up and push back without any fear. That's the way we beat these people. That's the Jasmine Crockett's. That's the AOCs. I mean, AOC has been pushing back against Tom Homan, the borders are, and Tom Homan keeps making threats. And AOC says, "Go ahead, motherfucker, give it a try." And those are the people that are ultimately going to um, beat these people, the people that stand up. But we don't have many people in Congress that are willing to do that. I have a feeling there's some Republicans that are feeling pretty shitty about what's going on the Republican side, but they just don't have the courage to do it. Uh, I'm convinced that once enough people start pushing back and it's safe, it's going to be a fucking monkey pile on Donald Trump and MAGA. All the Republicans will jump on when they think it's safe after a few others go after them. And nobody's been willing to do it as yet, but I think we're getting closer to that.
Right. And another thing we see these isolated elections here and there in elections in territory where Trump won by 30 points or 20 points or whatever, and it goes Democratic. That's saying something too.
It is. It is. Um, a lot of people think, well, we've got to get uh, the House and the Senate back so we can get some things done. I think what people have to understand is unless we get a supermajority in the Senate, we aren't getting anything done. I mean, what's going to happen for the 2 years after 2026, between 2026 and 2028? There won't be much done for this country and for the people in this country, but there'll be a shitload of hearings and
Yeah.
investigations. That 2 years will be just about picking apart Donald Trump and the MAGA party. So we're stuck with 4 years of nothing being done for us because up to this point, they passed 5 bills, the
Yeah.
least effective Congress in history, and it's not going to get any better. So we've got a 4 years of a void of doing anything to better this country.
Well, this is the thing, and that's the idea. I think they want to divorce people. They want people to say, and I think this is why. Um, well, there were two things wrong with the Democratic approach in the last election. One, Joe should have resigned, and they should have had an open primary and then gone all out. Um, the perception was there after the debate, whether it was true or not. The perception was there that Biden was faltering, and then it had to get messy, and then we told ourselves we can win with Kamala, and I still think she was a great candidate, but it didn't work. But
Right.
we have to. We had a lot of hearings, and we impeached Trump twice. But as you point out, the Senate would not remove him. They would say, well, the election will do that. The election will do that. And that was bullshit. And we should have known it was bullshit. But we let them get away with it. And there should have been pressure brought to bear on every one of those senators in their home
Absolutely.
district. Everybody, there should have been rallies and so forth, get rid of the bomb, whatever. But no, we'll go the usual way. We will have our hearings and people will see how bad he is. But there was just pushback, and the media didn't really cover it. They gave both sides every night, both sides. You decide, you decide. You can't think, but you decide. You're going to
Now,
believe what you believe.
we're getting to the end here, and I wanted to bring this up. There's a book that came out basically slamming Joe Biden and his cognitive abilities and exposing all this stuff. And my point to this is whether it's true or not, and we don't know that it's true because there's a lot of books that are a bunch of bullshit. Who fucking cares? What's that
It's,
got to do with anything? He's a
it's
private
ancient
citizen.
history. Well, they want to charge. See, this is where Pam Bondi would charge people. They knew that he was suffering from dementia, and they didn't report it, so they were lax or whatever. That's what they'll accuse him of. I really think that's what they might try to weaponize that. I do think that will come. With the Democrats' fault was that they did not sell what Biden was able to do. I mean, we were in sad shape when Biden took over. He fixed a lot. He couldn't fix inflation, but he brought it down from 7% to 2%. Now it's going back up. But they didn't
Right.
sell that. They did not sell it. And everybody needed to be behind Kamala 1,000% out there selling that. And for whatever reason, it happened, but it happened too late. I fault the Democratic leaders of the past, the Bill Clintons, the Obamas. They came out, but they came out too late. They should
They
have
came
been
out
out
too
there.
late.
Should have been out there the whole time. And
I don't know if
it
I
was. Go ahead.
I don't know if I agreed with it at the time, but in retrospect, what really should have happened if the Democrats truly wanted to win, I put on Joe Biden a little bit. I mean, I like Joe Biden. He was a great president, all that stuff, but he should have stuck to what he said he was going to be, a transitional president. He should not even have run at
No, that's
all.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. He should have said, I had my time, I fixed things, I'm passing it off, and I'm going to go put my feet up. It would have been a win, a big win.
It would have been a big win, and I'm not going to fault Joe Biden. He said, "Well, all of a sudden Trump's running again. I beat Trump, so I should be the one to beat him again." And I guess that's logic that he used, but he didn't take into consideration that he's 82 at the time, and he's just not going to come off strong just by virtue of being 82, not as strong as he needs to be. And Donald Trump, all this talk about Joe Biden's cognitive ability, we're reading this book while Donald Trump is up in the Middle East selling off America and talking about drones and cutting down trees and lumberjacks. Let's talk about cognitive ability.
No kidding.
This motherfucker has lost it a long time ago. It's not like he's losing it. He's fucking gone right now.
Yeah, this is the thing. I mean, when you look at the presidency, the president is not a king. A president is an executive. He puts people in charge of various departments and then he consults with them. He may have an overall idea, but the genius is in who you put in place to manage
Right.
the departments, right? After that point, you could have a monkey in there and it doesn't matter so much. But hopefully, you have something better than that. But even now, with everything they're doing to destroy the country, it functions. We're not being invaded. But this is one thing I want to caution against because it occurred to me while we were talking. I saw some video a while back of trainloads of tanks headed into the Southwest. I think Trump is going to try to invade Mexico at some point. If things get dicey, I think he'll give the order. Pete said Hegseth will execute it, and we will see American tanks rolling across the border, ostensibly to attack drug cartels, and they may actually do that. But it's not something that's needed. It's something that would just be to divert attention from something else. He'll start a war of some kind, and why not do it right here at home against an enemy we know we can defeat who doesn't have much of an army? But it allows us to go in, doesn't really endanger our troops much, but it makes it look like he's fighting this fentanyl invasion and all of this crap. He'll use that idea of we're being invaded that he's used to deport people. I think you're going to see it coming. I think it's being set up right now.
That could possibly be, and I think that if that should happen, you're going to see a lot of countries around the world pushing back. They are not
Oh
going to
yeah.
like that. They are not going to like that. But as we're wrapping this up, I told a story with Kristen regarding the hypocrisy of Donald Trump. Now, I was made aware of this story by Old Soul, who's on the show frequently, and she was told the story by her daughter, the wild child, who's very smart, very motivated young girl, and she she asked me about this story and she goes, "Is this true?" And I go, I don't know. So then I investigated. Donald Trump is pushing out, deporting, kidnapping, whatever you want to call it, brown people that might be gang members or terrorists or that sort of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
The funny thing about it is, and I looked this up, and it's true. While that's going on, Donald Trump allowed entry to this country to the family members of El Chapo,
Yeah.
the greatest terrorist in Mexico.
Yeah.
And you can bet the people around him are tied into it to a certain extent or not. But he let them into this country. It was Donald Trump. It wasn't the government. It was Donald Trump. And you know there was a payoff there. That's the
Oh
only
yeah.
way he would do it. So he wants to keep terrorists out. So he takes kids with cancer and moms and little children, kicks them out saying that they're terrorists. But he's literally taking money from terrorists and allowing them in this country. The epitome of hypocrisy and the epitome of putting this country in danger.
Not only that, let me throw this in because I wanted to mention it earlier. We see these ICE raids, right? And we see
Right.
some ICE people. I mean, they got the logos and so forth and all of that. But then they got these others with them, masks, and they're wearing blue jeans and half a uniform, and they're carrying their AR stuff and all of that shit. These guys look like the guys who show up at Walmart with the AR-15,
Right.
I mean, they weigh 200 pounds or 300 pounds, and they couldn't run 50 feet, much less 100 yards. And but they're there. They're backing up ICE. They're bounty hunters that,
Right.
and probably half of them attacked Congress in January 6th. I mean, this is something that really needs to be addressed. When they were talking to Christy Nome, somebody pointed out you can buy ICE gear online. You can go
Yeah.
on there and you can buy logo. And you have people out on the street kidnapping people at gunpoint, disappearing them. We don't know if these are ICE people. They don't have any credentials. They don't have any warrants. But they're doing this. This is happening. So, and this happens. This is the playbook. This is the oligarch's playbook, the dictator's playbook. Stalin, Hitler, all of these guys, Mao, disappearing people, attacking people with these. Hitler had his brown shirts. It looks like Trump has his ICE or his ICE wannabes, and
The
they're paid
Gestapo.
like $20 an hour or something like that. But that in this bill, there's a $40,000 bonus for each and every one of them.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about it is these people we talked about trials and Nuremberg trials. These people who are not officials of ICE that are scooping people up on the streets, you're right. That is absolutely kidnapping, and they should be exposed to who they are. I mean, if you're somebody who's working uh, as an ICE person, as a person from ICE, and you don't have the credentials for it, these people should be exposed, and they should be um, arrested because what they are doing is kidnapping. You've said this many times before, and I've been watching it, and I always thought it strange that some guy with a black shirt, black pants, and a mask over his face. When has it ever been that any kind of law enforcement in this country has to wear a mask over their face? I've never seen that happen. And that is troubling when we see it with what's going on with ICE. Why are they wearing the mask? Are they afraid the person they're catching is going to recognize them? No. They're afraid the people watching this are going to recognize them. And that in itself sounds very disconcerting.
It sounds like a TV show, is what it sounds like.
It does. It does.
One in specific. Oh, let's see. It's going to pop right out of my head. It was on. It was. There was a graphic novel series with about how superheroes were outlawed at
Right,
some
right.
point, right? And I'm trying to think of the name of it. People who know it will know. And next time I'll tell you what it was, because it's. Can we pause for 1 second?
Well, no, listen, we can't. Go ahead, do what you're going to do. If we had,
Okay.
if we had Will here,
Mm-hmm.
that
He'd
fucking
do it in a
nerd
second.
would get it. He
Yeah.
would do it in a second. He would know it in a second. It's
Well,
like, go ahead, do what you got to do.
it's right here on my bookshelf, somewhere there. But anyway, I may think of it yet anyway. But they did a Hulu series or a Netflix series that was a continuation. It was a comic first, and then it was a movie, and then they had this continuation of it, as a. It started off with the massacre of black people in, is it Tucson?
Oklahoma?
Yeah,
No.
yeah, and that's where it started off with. Gene Smart was the major character in this one, but at some point, criminals started hunting police officers, so they all started wearing masks. So
Yeah.
all of the police officers in this wear a mask. It sounds just like that, and it makes me think that maybe somebody took their cue from that. That they don't want to be identified, so there's no reciprocal action, if you will. But more than likely, it's just because they know they're criminals and they don't want to be identified.
Yeah. Everything Donald Trump does uh, seems like a ripoff on a TV show, and that makes sense because he's basically, yeah. What you were talking about was the 1921 Tulsa race riots,
Tulsa,
and that,
not
yeah,
Tucson. Yeah,
that
yeah,
was the thing nobody ever heard about, but it was a
right.
tragic situation. People in this town happened to be people of color. They had oil money, and they were probably the richest black community in the country.
They called it Black
And
Wall Street. Yeah,
Black Wall Street, right? And then the white people took an opportunity when something happened, and they basically wiped out the town and stole all their money. We never heard about that in the history books until recently.
right.
And to think that Donald Trump may take that page out of history and try to repeat it would not fucking surprise me. It's that bad with MAGA at this point.
Yeah, I see it in that way, and they can arrest anybody. They don't have to have warrants. They don't have to have here in Tennessee, the highway patrol's assisting. They're doing traffic stops. That way they don't have to go anywhere where people can see them doing it.
Right.
They just have the highway patrol pull them over, and then they take them from the highway patrol. The Tennessee legislature actually passed a bill allowing or requiring law enforcement to assist ICE here in the great state of Tennessee.
That's a great state of Tennessee. Well, I hope Tennessee enjoys the difficulties that are to come when the federal money starts to fucking dry up.
Oh, they have no
Because,
idea. They have
you
no
know,
idea of what's coming. The hospitals will close because they're dependent on Medicaid. The Meals on Wheels will be gone. Everything that a lot of people, SNAP, all of that's all going to be cut to the bone, to the point that nobody will be able to benefit from it. So yeah, it's coming big time.
all right. Well, Ed, we're going to wrap things up. I appreciate it. I always enjoy the conversation. It's always lively. It's always informative. The people who listen to the show love what you have to offer. So let them know where they can find you when you're not on the Rational Boomer podcast.
Well, you can find me at Reeling in the Years at TikTok, or at Holler Troll on TikTok. That's Reeling in the Years at Holler Troll on TikTok. Same for YouTube.
Right. And I think on TikTok, um, yeah, if you just go with that holler troll,
Yeah,
HOLLERTROLL, you'll find Ed there, and you're on uh, YouTube as well, correct?
right. Yeah, same thing. It's Reeling in the Years at
Holler troll.
Holler Troll. Yeah, you can find me. It's the same stuff. So I just go to TikTok as long as it's around.
I
Easier.
whenever you ask somebody what their handle is on TikTok, I remember mine, but it's like asking somebody what's your wife's phone number. I don't know
Yeah,
what my wife's phone number is. I do, but
I
you
do
hit the
too.
speed dial. You hit the
Not
speed
your
dial.
wife's, I know mine. But mostly, yeah, I hit the speed dial, but I do know it because I have to give it to, when I pick up medications and that kind of stuff sometimes. So I try to know mine and hers all the time,
I even
even
know
though
my wife's social security number.
I do too.
You
Not
got
your
to
not your
these.
wife, but mine. Yeah.
All right. Well, Ed, thank you very much for coming on. It's always a pleasure. For those listening, I want to thank you for taking the time. I hope you have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.